Everyone, this is Friday, July 20th, 2012, and this morning we have Dave Harms again from Dev Roadmaps, and he is going to, as you can read up here, he's going to take us on some of his discoveries that he's been doing on his tutorials. I'm going to make your screen big now. Thanks for coming back and sharing. Is that big enough for everybody? Otherwise, I'll go hide the chat and the names. I think that should be okay.
Everybody's still asleep.
It looks okay from here, Arnold.
Okay. Otherwise, I can make it bigger. You know, like, is that even better? Okay, let's do that. If people have questions, I'll just every so often show the. When you're ready for questions, Dave, I'll show the chat box. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. It's all yours.
Okay. Well, I don't think this will be a really long webinar or anything. Just a couple of things that I thought I would go through, and I'm of course doing this from the perspective of somebody who has probably a lot less experience with WinDev than some of you here. So maybe this is more for the benefit of people who are going to watch the recording. I don't know, but the point I've got to in the tutorial, I'm a little over 3/4 of the way through, I guess, and then coming into the advanced programming section, which has some pretty interesting bits in it. And the one that I came across just this week had to do with dynamic compiling. And for those with a Clarion background, this is a little bit like Evaluate, except more comprehensive than that. And there's an example here. And in this example, it's going to draw a little chart. I'll just run the window first. And this is one thing that I still have to say I'm kind of tickled about with WinDev. It's really nice to be able to just test individual windows or test individual queries without actually having to run the whole application. So that's pretty sweet. Anyway, you click on any one of these formulas here. You click on Draw, and it's going to go ahead and apply that formula. And the thing is that these aren't just little sort of just lines of text that tell you what the code is going to tell you the formula. This is the actual code that's being compiled. And I went and looked at the example, and I found that there was some extra code in the example that I think actually made it a little bit harder to understand than it needed to be. So I just want to walk through that. And in the code, let's see, make a little that down a little. So this is the function right here. There's a local procedure called displayLine, and what this procedure is doing is every time you click on that button to draw something, the procedure gets called, and there's a little bit of code that grabs that string, and that code is that code is actually an embed point up here somewhere. Do people in WinDev call these embed points? I mean, I guess that's just sort of a Clarion holdover, but what do you guys call? I call them embeds. I don't know. Anyway, the thing that I found sort of interesting and a little bit confusing was that there's some extra code, some extra sort of unnecessary parameter to this procedure. But before I go through that, I'll just walk through what's happening here. And this little block of code here, this is a string, and this string is a function, and it has a placeholder here. And this placeholder is what's going to get replaced by, go back to the thing here. Each time you click on one of these things, what you're doing is you're taking this text and you're plugging it in to this little %1 symbol here. So that kind of completes the function code. And the code that does the replacing is actually this little bit here, which is the string build function. And so that takes as the first parameter this string here, and the second parameter is the formula, and it's simply replacing this token with with that formula. So it's actually kind of nice to have a function like this just built into the API, because if you're doing any kind of a merge of data, like for I don't know, sending out emails or something like that, that's the kind of thing that you might find particularly useful. The only thing I haven't explored is whether you can actually do this to pass in identifiable parameters instead of just being the first, second, third. Anyway, so you take this, you plug in the text, and then you compile that text. But the thing that I find a little bit, and then after you've compiled it, then you have a function called YValue, and you can call YValue at any point you want. And what's happening here, there's just a loop here, and specifying the value of x from -200 to +200, and then calculating the value of y for each one of those, and then writing a line from the previous position to the current position, which is how you get that nice little curve being drawn. So the thing that's a little bit confusing about this, or was for me, is I couldn't figure out what in the world this parameter was doing, because I couldn't see that it was actually being used anywhere. So what I decided was to just delete it, and then go down here and delete it from that call and from this call. Run it again, and what do you know?
Still worked.
Still works. Everything's exactly the same. So I think this is probably one of those situations where this is maybe at some point they were doing something else with this in the function. I don't know, or maybe whoever wrote it just kind of grabbed a copy of the code from somewhere else where that was needed and it isn't needed here. Or maybe there used to be an older way of doing this. I don't know. But it's also possible that in an earlier version of this, maybe you actually passed in the string and then used the string right here. I haven't explored that to see whether that's another way of doing it. But all I know
you
is
you see on the top, I mean, not on the error compile line where it has function code comma function.
Yeah.
Funct. You're passing it in anyway, right?
Well, yeah. What you're doing is you're passing it into the string build, and the string build takes that string, that formula, and it just
throws it in there.
And it just replaces the %1 with the formula. So that's how
nothing was passed in.
Yeah. So so nothing actually has to be passed in as a parameter to this. It's kind of like there's already code in there. Now you're passing in the code again, but you're not doing anything with it. So
well, what's the %1 you say then?
Well, that's just a placeholder. So %1, if you the string build function here says take this string, which is the entire this block here. It says take this string and then plug in this string, and this string is the formula that comes out of the list box. If you go to the window here, right, this is the content here. So every time you click on something, this line, whatever line you've selected, gets assigned to func.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it would have been actually.
Well, that's what I don't understand, is because you just deleted it from those other places, right? That variable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it wasn't actually being used anywhere. So it was what was happening is it was being passed in as a parameter to the function. Well, at the point at which you're passing in the parameter, which is really down here when you're calling YValue, I'll show you a look at the.
Why do you need it?
Exactly. Yeah. Why do you need it? So here's from the blog post. This is what the function code is actually going to look like after you've selected the first one. See, there's the formula. It's been plugged in place of %1. So now this code is going to execute. It's going to be compiled. It's going to execute like this. If you've already got this function, there's really no need to pass in the string again because the string's already there. So I think it's just one of those, I'm assuming anyway, it's just one of those cases of, somebody modifying, refactoring the code and then just forgot to clean up that little bit. But when I looked at it, it really confused me at first because I thought, well, there must be some purpose to having it there, and there doesn't appear to be any purpose to having it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take it out, I think.
But I would think that func would have been the result of That funk? No, no.
Yeah, well, it's also not. Uh, it's
It
maybe
doesn't
just
make
also an
sense.
example of if you, instead of calling it func, do you call it function string or something?
Hmm.
That might be a little more. So you get function. I'll say function code. Yeah. Um, this is actually probably another really good example of how important it is to be careful about choosing your procedure names and your variable names and try to
That's
make
right.
them.
That's what this webinar was all about, right?
That's what it's all about. It's like, don't write crap like this. Now, this
Yeah.
is
We don't
this is
want
pretty
crap.
slick. I think this is very cool code, and it really opens up a whole lot of possibilities for changing the behavior of your application on the fly.
Pretty
Also
tight too.
also opens up a bunch of dangers. you know, but with great power comes great responsibility. So there you go. And there's nothing special you have to do in order to be able to compile this stuff. You just write the code and compile. I don't know what, if any, sort of limitations there might be on this, but it
Oh,
looks pretty.
Andy would have loved to talk, but his headset's broken.
Oh,
How
okay.
can that
Wow.
be? So, looking good. Anybody have questions or comments?
Headset broke me. Yeah, it makes me.
Yeah.
Well, I was about to sort of insult Andy later on. I thought maybe it was a premonition on his part that he didn't want to be around for that, but he's always around. He's always up for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll
Andy
work on.
lives for this stuff.
Okay,
That's
well,
really cool.
if nobody
So,
has,
so go ahead.
I was going to say, go ahead.
So, do you run into a lot of these things, or just this is just happened to be one you just ran into lately?
I haven't run into too many of these kinds of things. I think mostly what I've been doing up until this point, it's been still fairly familiar territory as far as the code itself goes. But there are a few things. There's another thing that just happened the other day, and you guys on the Skype chat really helped me out with this, or at least shared listened to my frustration until I figured it out. Um, but that was if you go to, for instance, there's another window here called in the advanced example, it's called a timer window. And the way a timer works is you call a procedure, and that procedure you set up as a timer. So the little procedure here is called refresh time, and over in the upper left-hand corner is this little green circle arrow circle. And if you double click on that, you get sort of this information about how you can make a procedure run in the background, can be on its own thread, or it can be something that just gets called, I assume, on like a Windows event timer. But so that was kind of interesting. I like that. But what I couldn't find right away was, how do you actually create one of those? How do you make it? How do you change an
How do
existing
you turn
procedure?
that on?
How do you turn it on? So let's go back. Here's my display line. The one don't need to make this into a timer, but let's say we just wanted to have it running as a background process. How do you do that? If I come up here and right click, it turns out that there is actually an option here. I can configure the automated processes right here. Now that's not the terminology I'm looking for, I guess. But part of learning a new tool is learning the terminology. So
What would you coin it? What would you call
I'd,
it?
I'd have something in there about run as a background process, or run on a timer. But
Mhm.
automated procedure mechanism, sure. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
learning new terminology. That's fine. But that's not the first place I found it. The first place I found, and you can click anywhere here to do that. First, I tried double clicking. What the heck? Why not? That didn't work. And then I went over to
Hey,
the
wait, stop. Stay there first.
yeah.
Andy says, you see the 130 on the far right, that little rectangle? He
Okay.
says, click on that. Right
Oh,
click on that.
there you go. Same thing. Well, that's cool. So there's another place you can do it. I didn't. I never even noticed that. And this is and you know maybe part of the problem here, in a way, for me anyway, is and learning any kind of a new idea. It's funny where all the little things are, and
Mhm.
screens are much bigger than they once were. So there's a lot more stuff on the screen, and I think I have a bit of a problem sometimes noticing enough stuff that's going around. I get focused on a particular area. I'm thinking this should be there, and so then I focus in on that area. And I don't find it there, and I start getting like, oh, well, it should be there. Why isn't it there? And then I start hunting around other places, but I sometimes don't just look at the whole screen to see where things might be.
Yeah, they got stuff hidden all over. I mean, you go down to the bottom, you know, there's tons of stuff that can show up.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, very cool.
Now there's another place you can do that. If you go here and if you right click on the procedure in the Project Explorer, then you get the same option here. Now there's
three-way so far.
Yeah. Now something else here that I think is and it's create a unit test. Come back to that.
That's your favorite.
This is I'm gonna bang that drum again today, just for a minute.
Please.
Anyway, one thing I'm curious about though is what in the world are all these? What's with the blue man group down here? What does assign to a color group mean? Can anybody tell me what that is? I just noticed that this morning. I thought that was kind of interesting. So assign it to a green group. All right, now it's in a green group. I don't know what that means. But there's some colors up here. Will that tell me? Lightness of the toolbars? No. Andy's typing, so that's good. So Andy's going to come up with an answer for that. This, by the way, is
no freaking idea.
Okay, well, you know, it changed its color anyway, right? So that's a sign to no group.
I think it's more for classification, so you can see stuff really easy.
Yeah, maybe.
Andy says colorblind anyway, so no. Hey, can you grab a couple of things and then grab a couple of them and then right click and see if you can create a color group?
Oh, you can select multiple ones.
You only can do one at a time?
No.
Or can you do more than one at a time and make them purple or something?
No, you know what? It only did one at a time. I had multiple selected, but it only did the first one selected. Okay. Well, yeah, I guess maybe it's just something to kind of help you organize them if you've got a whole bunch of local procedures somewhere or a bunch of global procedures. Oh.
Anybody has the French likes like colors.
Oh, hey, that's actually something else here. Speaking of sort of this French predilection for, what would be a good thing here? If we do file new window. And
look at that wheel, right? The selection wheel is so colored.
Yeah, the selection wheel. No, that's not what I want. What do I want? A wizard here. What do I new query? Is that what I want? I want something with a wizard. What's going to be a good one? Okay, right here. Okay, you click. This is. I gotta say, I don't actually share the French's predilection for seeing pouty red lips every time I want to create a query.
You can change that, right?
Yeah, well, this is my point. Is if anybody doesn't know, you can just kind of right click on this and choose something else. And it's not that I have, it's just like somehow it's like I'm coding here. Don't distract me. I don't
know. Maybe we should put Andy there pointing at you. Keep us going.
Yeah.
Andy, create a picture so we can all put it over there.
Yeah. Okay.
Ooh, Carla Bruni.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Oh no Speedo pictures, Andy. No.
Okay. All right. Now. Another thing that came up in just the last couple of days here, it was this business of this is the one where I got it was asking in the Skype chat. It was just driving me up the wall. Was okay. So in the tutorial, it said you could add new events, like say for the button here, if you wanted like a double click event handler or something like that. And I don't know. I guess I don't see things. I mean, I like to think I'm fairly observant, but WinDev is starting to convince me that I'm almost completely non-observant. And it's just this whole thing of like I have an expectation that I'm going to see the menu option, I'm going to see the button, I'm going to see it in a certain place. And the tutorial gave me this nice little showed some nice little buttons. These are the buttons you're looking for. Didn't say where they were, and I'm looking up here. I'm saying I don't see the buttons. I'm like, let me customize my toolbars. I'm looking through all of these things. I don't see those buttons anywhere. What? the buttons are down here at the bottom, right? So that this little thing here, more process as well, more event handling. Click on that little thing, pop up the list here, and now I can add a whole ton of different sort of standard events. So that actually answered another question that kind of been in the back of my mind for a long time. Having been used to seeing all of those embed points visible to me in Clarion in the embedder, I was kind of curious as to why I wasn't seeing that kind of stuff in WinDev. So that sort of answered that question. But that brings up another question, which is, I'm going to add another event here. Whoops, and then I have to. What is it? Anyway, the other question that brings up for me is you've got all these embed points again. Let's not repeat the sins of Clarion, and by which I mean, don't put your business logic in embed points.
No, 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 no.
I mean, here you've got an example, actually. Yeah, it's a reasonable example. You've actually got at least a local procedure here for this. Although the problem, again, with doing something like that is it's not really reusable anywhere else. I mean, a local procedure, you can call it multiple places within a window, but you can't really sort of go and use it, elsewhere in your application. And but if you put this in a class, and I mean, you can put it in a global procedure as well, but I really think if anybody out there, if you're not doing object-oriented programming, you know what? It's been around almost as long as most of you guys, and longer than some. It's been around for like about 50 years now, I think. So just dig into it, get used to it, because there's so many things you can do in terms of code reuse and testability. And here's the thing: even Andy has written his first class, and if Andy's writing classes, shouldn't you be writing classes? And
Well, he's on his fourth one.
Yeah, well, you know what? Now he's just going to take off. Now it's going to be it's just going to be huge, right? So if you're not doing object-oriented stuff, just suck it up, do some reading, start learning about it, because there's so much more stuff you can do with objects than you can do with procedures. Just tremendously more flexibility.
Just ask Pete.
Yeah. And he says,
classing
no.
everything. Class.
And he says, no, not really. SQL or die. SQL or die. That's a whole nother discussion. So one last thing, because I got like 30 seconds here. I thought it would be kind of interesting in terms of, and I'm not a user interface design guy by any stretch. Okay, I'm just kind of more like a coding guy. But I don't know if you guys have noticed some of the things that are happening out there with user interface design, and I don't know if this stuff is a fad or not. This is the new Visual Studio. And the first thing that I'm noticing about this, I'm bringing up another application here, which is my favorite apps here. This is GitHub.
Yeah.
So when you look at these apps, actually, I like GitHub's approach to their main menu. Well, one thing you notice, you can grab it anywhere and move it around, right? Don't have to grab it in the you don't have to grab it by the caption bar. But one thing I noticed, I like this. They've gone lowercase on their top menu here. I really kind of distraught to see the all caps on the menu up here.
That's pretty heavy.
Consider, but I think there was in the submenus earlier, but it isn't now. It's kind of gone to more traditional stuff here. Yeah, it is pretty heavy. But the thing I want to point out is there's this whole sort of a move to chromelessness. So by comparison, I'm going to make the window here. Here you've got the border, so the classic Windows style thing. You've got sort of more identifiable divisions between things, and it all gets a little bit less so in this chromeless look. And there's very little. There's just tiny little borders around there. No real sort of identifiable area for the caption bar, and this seems to be a bit of a trend. And I'm just kind of wondering if there's a possibility for. I haven't looked through all of the styles that are available for WinDev, but I wonder how hard it would be to achieve something like that with a WinDev style. So I'll just that's my closing comment.
You know what's really weird is the right and left borders are really thin. and everybody's on wide screens now. So the width part is not the problem if it's real estate, you know.
Yeah.
It's the top and bottom that
Mhm.
are the problems.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
Anyway, I don't know. We'll see how this goes, but it does seem to be a bit of a trend out there to have this chromeless look.
I don't know if I like it, but
I don't know if I like it either.
because usually when I see really thin stuff, it's like a moto or something within a frame, and it's not on its own. But nowadays it is you know, it is a main frame, and it seems weird to me. But I do see it a lot, so just got to get with it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I know. Yeah. And Andy points out, yes, you can create your own style, which is why I was wondering. It'd be interesting if someone would maybe try and come up with that for WinDev developers.
Maybe we should tell the French to get with it.
Yeah.
And PC Soft might do it.
I wonder if the chromeless look is in vogue on the other side of the pond.
Maybe it's come and gone. Who knows? You know.
Yeah.
So, any other feedback or questions or otherwise? Hey, Brian, did you want to show anything real quick or say anything?
I don't have anything to show today, Arnold, but
Okay. Or you want to kind of give us a little tease on what you've been encountering? Maybe
Yeah,
Dave can help you out here.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been working on WebDev more than anything lately. Getting the application server set up, because in my world, I have a data center and I also host everything that I build. There were some challenges getting that set up so that it works with the real world, but you know, once you know how to do it, it's not a problem, and more than happy to share that at some point once I get a little further along on this web app. I did run into a bit of a challenge where the web app ran fine on desktops, ran fine on iPad, iPhone, but ran into a snag on Android, because apparently until 4.1 or Jelly Beans, Android does not support displaying PDFs as a link in a web page. That came as a bit that came as a bit of a surprise. So the Chrome browser, which has an extension called Google Docs extension, which handles viewing PDFs, that won't be out until version 4.1, which I think is now available for Nexus devices. But I picked up a Galaxy 3 S3, and that's what I was testing on, and discovered that I thought it was something I'd coded incorrectly. But as it turns out, it's just a deficiency in the browser on Android at the moment.
Were there any things?
Sorry.
Test. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Awesome.
Oh, barely, Andy. You're way in the background.
Yeah, he's really loud here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
There was a lot of background noise there.
I got people all around me.
Oh, now I can hear him.
Yeah.
You must be on an open mic there.
Yeah.
No, not really. It's actually a headset. It's just there's 6 people around me.
Oh, tell Terry to be quiet.
You got Terry, Glenn, Matt, and Jesse.
Tell them they can't take you away yet.
You figured it'd take 6 of them to get rid of me.
So do you have something to share besides your Speedo?
No, not really.
Oh, okay. All right.
Just that interface sucks right there.
You mean the Visual Studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it's not something that I would have. Well, actually, the only thing that I think that really bothers me is the use of all caps for the top menu. That really bothers me a lot. Other than that, I don't mind. I guess I've been using his stuff enough that I don't mind it terribly. Yeah, I sort of get used to it. But
well, you know what? If it wasn't so many items, it might not be so bad. But it's so many.
Yeah, I think it may.
I've used uppercase, as the group labels for like a ribbon bar, so it would distinguish from the little, the upper the capitalized under the buttons. But this is a bit much. This is like a lot of that should have been a sentence you know,
Yeah.
screaming
Well,
at you.
apart from that, no, I mean, like around the toolbar, for instance, you just don't have you're basically losing a lot of the borders, right? You don't really get the so there are fewer visual cues, and I'm wondering if one of the reasons that they're doing that is just to they feel people are becoming more sophisticated, and you don't need some of the same I don't know, some of the same things that you once needed. I'm not
That's
sure.
BS.
We'll see where it goes. Well, yeah,
I
I
think
gotta say, Alex,
I think they want to sell a new version.
I always kind of hated GUIs. When I didn't hate GUIs, but I thought GUIs struck me as a step backwards, because you could actually, I found you could communicate. You're communicating less with pictures. You know, I mean, we think about the development of human language. We started out with pictures, right, and then we went to like language, and that was an improvement. So why would it be an improvement in computers going from language to little pictures? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Just saying that it's like anything else. If it's something that the market demands, it'd be nice if there's a way to do it in WinDev. So, but we're kind of getting away from Brian's point, which I was curious about something that you said, Brian. Like you're running a data center, and when you're getting everything set up and working, were there issues there that you encountered that you think people would have if they're trying to run their WinDev apps in a cloud and run it on somebody else's data center? What were the gotchas?
I think part of it was setting up the IIS, and because when you call a WebDev application, you have to pass it this long string, which basically points to the application itself, and the configuration of IIS to allow that to be mapped to a separate IP inside of IIS. I had a mechanism that, or a process that I went through for regular websites, and it wasn't readily available to me to do that. So I've got some steps that will help other people walk through that and figure it out. But yeah, there are some gotchas if you're not paying attention, because the flexibility in IIS 7.5, whatever the current one is, it just created some challenges. But there were some workarounds, and I'm more than happy to explain those to folks when the time comes.
That would be fun.
Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, I beat that around for about a
Get
week.
your movie camera. Get your movie camera going too, so we can see your data center.
Yeah, that's a little underwhelming. Just a bunch of towers or racks with computers in them. But the other thing I meant to ask Dave is, have you tried changing the IDE, the WinDev IDE display?
To different configurations.
Not only that, but the colors and the tones, and that's what that little 3-color wheel icon was on your machine. If
oh yeah, get it really light or something.
Is that a right mouse click you did there?
It's lightness of the. No, that was. I think I just clicked on it. Like a right mouse click.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of other stuff you can do in there on that particular one, but.
Wow, it's all related to the environment, huh?
And then you can rerun the wizard too. There are definitely a whole lot of.
Yeah, you can.
Well, they pack it in, that's for sure.
Yeah, you could waste days in that.
Let's see, what did Andy say? I will be releasing a group of cloud apps for the desktop in the next week or two. And then Jack says, untried, but this link tells how to make a registry change to get rid of all the caps in Visual Studio 212. Okay, there you go.
There, this is sort of, I think this would be kind of like sort of an Andrew Gietrose color scheme here. Where he used to really have like so what, mustard yellows and stuff? I can't remember.
Wow.
I'm more of a green guy. Anyway, interesting. It's yeah, it can be a real time sucker to start looking at all this stuff.
Yeah, then a new version come out and they don't hold it. No, I'm kidding.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the custom menu is kind of cool too. You can add your own stuff under there, and that works.
Yeah,
take it away.
Pretty slick.
Been hearing about that. Now, how do you get back? Oh, that's a nice color.
Oh, back to normal.
Yeah, there's no back to normal. I don't think, is there?
like default. There should be some place that takes you back to default, I would think.
Yeah. I don't know.
Refresh. Oh, there you go.
That's what it was, that little button there. Just return it.
Yeah,
Okay.
like somebody said, I just spent 2 hours fiddling with this, and I clicked that one arrow, and it's all gone. Oh,
Well,
gosh.
I'm sure you could save your configuration, right? It's got to be an option
but if you
somewhere to do that.
Yeah.
There's the custom menu. Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
it says custom menu. Yeah. Okay. Click direct. There was an arrow. Yeah, there was. Okay. Well, cool. Thank you for coming on again, Dave. And, we can always just talk about whatever, like you did. So that's cool.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What is Andy saying? Display submenu. Oh, can you go to display up on top?
Okay.
Yeah. Now what? Toolbars on the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
That was the same as that one you had up on
environment. Oh, look at this. Configurations.
Yeah, you can save it.
Oh, look at that. Then Control 1 to Control 4 to switch between configurations. Cool stuff. And what he also said about.
Oh, have you played with double monitors or wide versus regular and that kind of stuff?
No, early on I think I did, but I've just been using it on the one monitor at this point.
Yeah, it kind of bothered me that I had to. I thought the 2 would be good for me, but I found that it was like, oh my gosh, you're taking up all my space here. And I just went back to the 1. But there's all those keystrokes that you can switch back and forth between them. So.
And I think one of the things that does make it a little bit more difficult sometimes getting around the IDE is that because it's originally a French product, I find this in the tutorial. There's sort of the English is not. It's quite a good translation, I think, but the English is not always idiomatic, I guess. And I find the same thing about the IDE, about the names of the different options. There's just somehow it's just some of those things just seem a bit off to me. They're just not what I really would have expected, and that's it's not a big thing, but I think it's just
it was. I think it was a big enough thing that they were looking for somebody to help translate. Actually.
Okay. Yeah.
But can you imagine how much they have to translate?
Yeah. Oh,
This is a ton.
I
mean, think about all the online help. And if they ever did list how much that stuff would go, oh my gosh. Andy said he's going to volunteer, but he's going to have the Texas slang in there.
I'd like to see a cowboy version of the IDE.
Yeah. Move one side 17 because you'll have a hat.
Yeah.
Brian says it'll be all pictures. That's funny. All right. So if we don't have anything else, watercolors. What? Is he an artist? Okay. Again, thanks again, Dave. And Brian, we look forward to hearing from you. And Andy, from you too, when you have not so many people around you making noise. All right. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you next week when Alan Sawyer is going to talk